And welcome back here to Versus Live at StarCityGames.com. I'm Ross Merriam, Todd Anderson. We are continuing our exploration of Modern Horizons, and we got a couple nice ones here today, or here for the second match. I am playing Mardu Pyromancer, including Gerard's Verdict.
Ooh.
You know, we played Him to Tarok on Tuesday. That card too good. Gerard's Verdict, played perfectly fine and sweet.
Well, I think that they're both quite strong Magic cards, and I think that one occupies a space that the other one can leave behind if it is too good. Like if Him to Tarok didn't exist in Legacy, I think that there are decks that could and should play Gerard's Verdict in their spot, and I think that the life gain can matter a significant amount if you're playing against something like a Delver deck that very regularly wants to discard extra lands.
Or perhaps Burn.
Yeah.
You think a Burn player beats turn 2 Gerard's Verdict ever?
No.
Has that ever happened?
But that actually might be an argument for it to not be put in the set.
Has that ever happened? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I've cast quite a few Gerard's Verdict in my day, but I've never cast it against Burn.
Yeah, but Burn is usually pretty good against the kind of decks that would play Gerard's Verdict, like this Mardu Pyromancer deck.
True. And so this Mardu Pyromancer deck, yeah, so it's kind of centered around discard effects, right? Like you have Inquisition or Thoughtseize, you have Young Pyromancer, you have Gerard's Verdict now. How do you think the life gain is going to affect this deck? Do you think like the extra life points, like mitigating the shock lands, is going to be a pretty big deal, especially against aggressive decks?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the sort of a minor element to the card, but it's one that helps boost it a little bit and make it worthwhile for it to be a dead card late. When you're playing a lot of discard spells, this deck usually does. I'm down to 5 one-mana discard spells. You usually see 6 or 7. That means we have 8 total discard spells, which is a lot of weak draws off the top. Mm-hmm. But we have Faithless Looting to pitch them away. So having this really powerful just turn 2, like take 2 cards out of your hand, that's what this deck wants to do. But when you play a lot of discard spells, you fall behind on the battlefield. So the life gain helps you, get more time to catch back up after you've torn their hand apart and gotten ahead by executing that part of your game plan. Now you have more time to clean up what's there with all your removal, cast your Young Pyromancer that maybe you didn't have time to with the extra 3 or even 6 life. So it's really about tactical flexibility and being able to make your trades early without having to worry too hard about what's going on the battlefield, and know that you're eventually will find your removal spells, you'll flash back your Faithless Lootings, and clear everything that's left, and then be up 2, 3, 4 cards.
Right. Are there any other new cards in your deck, or is it just the Gerard's Verdict in this ship?
Got one other nice one. We got 2 copies of Toxic Deluge, a nice little sweeper here. A little awkward with the Young Pyromancer and Lingering Souls, but this is a pretty threat-light deck. And one of the ways that you can beat it is by getting ahead against the discard spells, and Toxic Deluge helps you clean up, against humans or spirits or any creature deck. Even something like Hardened Scales Affinity, it'll help you clear up all the Thopter tokens from Hangerback Walker.
Now, it is pretty sweet that you can just chain 1-mana discard into Gerard's Verdict into Toxic Deluge, because your opponent is very incentivized to kind of spew so that later on they don't get hit by a discard spell that actually affects them. So there is something to be said about just the way that discard spells work, kind of run your opponent kind of headfirst into Toxic Deluge. Now, we talked a little bit about Toxic Deluge on Tuesday. Personally, I'm of the opinion that it's right at just the right power level because of Shocklands. I think Shocklands make it so that your average starting life total in Modern is way closer to 15 or 16 than it is 20, and Toxic Deluge has a significant cost when you pair it with it, especially if you're trying to kill like 3/3s or 4 toughness creatures.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I was on the fence about Deluge, and so we're trying it out today and giving it a nice test. But the point about Shocklands is definitely making that life loss even more of a liability is really important. I think it's actually, even though it looks like a Nombo with Souls and Young Pyromancer, I think it's quite good in this deck. If they're overrunning you and your Young Pyromancer and Lingering Souls aren't going to be enough to stop whatever aggression they're going on, you kind of need a card like Toxic Deluge at that point, because that means your opponent has a really large battlefield with a lot of creatures, and having a really flexible sweeper is going to be important in spots like that, even if you do lose a couple tokens or a Pyromancer in the process. And then when you get to the point where you're playing Bedlam Reveler, you can cast your Deluge for 4. And your Reveler is going to survive because of the prowess trigger. True. So that should clear away a lot of other things. Maybe you cast one spell first into it, so you can cast it for 5 and clear away Tarmogoyf for Gurmag Angler. Mm-hmm. It's a card that can even potentially kill Death Shadow. I don't know how good Toxic Deluge would be in Death Shadow decks. That seems kind of neat.
It does seem kind of neat. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are ways to spend life to your advantage, and Toxic
Yes.
Deluge really stresses that a bit. But I don't think it's a fluke. We haven't seen Toxic Deluge in the legacy versions of Death Shadow, so I'm not sure how good it's going to be in that style of deck. Because of course, it's not like you can pay life and hit for a bigger Death Shadow the turn you cast it. It just basically keeps your Death Shadow at the same power toughness it is while you're attacking that turn, and then the next turn is going to be big.
Yeah, so probably not too overpowered, but a neat interaction there. The card never dies to a deluge, no matter how much you pay. As for the Mardu Pyromancer deck, we're going to be pairing it against a archetype that historically has been misunderstood. You often think of Goblins, which is what Todd is playing, is a very aggressive deck, but the versions that we saw in Legacy for many years and then extended years before that with Goblin Matron and Goblin Ringleader are really good at playing a long game. They draw so many cards, they grind through removal really well, and so we're going to have a real sort of throwback attrition battle here. A lot of removal, a lot of card drawing creatures, and then the deluges should come up pretty big, clearing away a lot of the extra tokens you get from Siege Gang Commander and Mog War Marshal and things like that. I can pretty reliably cast it for 2 or 3 and clear your battlefield, so my Bedlam Revelers will be safe. And then I've got some Answers to Vile with Manda Colligan's command. There's just a lot of good interaction going on here, but the power of Ringleader is going to be really important.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of swinging for the fences here in this build. Our original restriction when we were doing this was try to stick around 2 new cards and don't push it. But I want to try out Sharpshooter. I wanted to try out Ringleader, Goblin Matron, Gem Palm Incinerator, even Sparksmith. A lot of the Onslaught Goblins were the core of the Goblin deck for a long time. And losing Onslaught right before Mirrodin came out and just having that be the chop-off point means that we've lost so many Goblins that they've kind of slowly bled back into Modern over time. Like, we just got War Chief back. We got Pile Driver back a while ago, Siege Gang Commander back a while ago, Prospector recently.
Yes.
And so I kind of feel like there's a chance. There's a big Goblin theme in this new set as a way to give Goblins a chance in Modern, because it was such an important part of the old extended decks and even just like standard times past.
And its standard, it definitely was a big part of those. And I would not be surprised if we see several of the pieces. So you're playing with 3 of the really important pieces.
Yeah, I think the deck can't function without Gem Palm Incinerator. You need a removal spell that's a Goblin that benefits you as the game goes along, as well as gives you a means of interaction against creature-based decks.
Yeah, it was one of the big payoffs for playing all Goblins. You got this really good removal spell. It was almost 2 mana Terminate, draw card.
Yep. We're also playing Goblin Matron, which I think is also a necessary element to the deck as a way to give your deck a level of consistency. And Goblin Matron, of course, also missing the cutoff by 1 set. It was in 7th edition instead of 8th edition.
Yes.
And then last but not least, we were playing Goblin Ringleader, which has seen a reprint in the Elves versus Goblins deck as well. It was originally in Apocalypse, was just a few sets, or a few blocks rather, right before Modern's cutoff. This is around the same time I actually just started playing Magic, pretty seriously, and honestly, this has given me some level of excitement that I haven't felt in a while. So I'm curious to see how Goblins does. But I mean, in the face of Colgan's command and Toxic Deluge and Gerard's Verdict, it's gonna feel like an old school brawl, and I'm really hoping that Ringleader draws me out of it.
This deck, it was impressive what Goblins could grind through. You thought decks that were stacked with good removal and sweepers were just going to be easy pickings against Goblins, and it just was not the case. And you even have cards that match up well against my threats. That one Goblin Chain Whirler that you can tutor for against Lingering Souls and Pyromancer. You cut it?
I cut it because you made me play Mutavault.
Do you have it in your sideboard?
Nope.
Oh no.
So that's one of the reasons. Okay, so first of all, this is probably not the best build of Goblins by any means.
You got to play Mutavault in your Vile deck.
Well, I also think I don't think you do.
You got to play. You got to play some utility lands.
That's fair.
And Mutavault's the best one.
Sure.
That's
anyway,
my point.
So I lost the roll. I'm gonna be on the play here. Let's take a gander at our opener.
Okay.
It's not great, but we're gonna keep it.
Yeah, I've got the. This is the kind of hand this deck has. So
Mutavault, your turn.
Okay.
I'm gonna beat you down.
Inquisition. Yeah.
Right, you get a Mog War Marshal, and then I'm gonna beat you in the face.
Yes. 18.
Bang. I guess I should lead with I should lead with Mountain probably, because I can't attack with both of them next turn. So
okay, I'll go to 16 and play Pyromancer. Pass the turn.
Draw for turn. All right, I'm gonna play a Goblin Matron, and I'm going to go search up a Gem Palm Incinerator. If I had one more mana, I'd go get a Tarfire and cast it. But here I think I just want to get Incinerator and force him to have a discard spell. Or else I get to draw an extra card.
Okay. I will Thoughtseize you and make a token.
Okay.
So I'm at 14. I'll take the Gem Palm Incinerator. Then I'll play a Marsh Flats, go to 13, and Thoughtseize the
Come
Ringleader,
on.
make a token, and go to 11. Getting a basic swamp. The life total already pretty low here, but Todd is out of gas. These Mutavaults are actually going to be a problem.
Maybe.
And I will pass a turn. Don't want to trade this Pyromancer for a Matron.
Sorry about your face, bro. Cycle target.
Yep.
Now, even if he did have a bolt for the Matron,
Todd could
we could activate Mutavault. So.
You should probably have played a land first then, because then you could activate the Mutavault and still attack with it.
Sure. Okay. All right. I think I'm actually fine trading a Mutavault here for 2 Goblins, so we'll attack.
I'm also fine doing that.
All right. So what do you
take
at?
1, go to 10.
All right. And
Dealt
I'm
myself
still at
quite a lot of
20.
damage here.
Your turn. Yeah, I mean but here if you cast Drawage Vert on me, I'm like pretty incentivized to just discard my lands that I still have, you know.
Pass the turn.
All right, and this is
Maybe I should hold this land for looting.
this is the kick. The Ringleader after all the attrition, just to peel off the top. We had a War Chief. All right, well we only hit 1, but that's fine. We don't draw 3 lands, and then it also has haste and comes in.
That's 7.
Your turn. Did you lose a land? Oh, you held a land. Sorry.
Yeah.
Toxic Deluge. Deluge looks pretty bad against Mutavault. Just want to point out this all turned around completely just because I peeled Gem Palm Incinerator. Card's great.
Looting?
Sure. What you thinking about? Discard a Deluge. Ooh. I guess a lot of my creatures have haste, so that's
Yes.
like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I'll have haste, and you have 2 Mutavaults, and I'm at 7.
Yeah. So now the question is, do I just slam in with a bunch of Mutavaults, or do I just like play out my hand, or what? Because I mean, he's probably got some spot removal here, right? So I think I'll just name Goblin. We'll play the War Chief that he knows about.
Yep.
And then I'm going to play a Goblin Matron trigger.
Yep.
Okay. And now we'll just go get something like Siege Gang, which dodges removal, or sorry, dodges Fatal Push as well as Inquisition. And we still have the 2 Mutavaults, so I think we'll get that because it's the best follow-up if he does have a sweeper. But he's basically forced to bolt War Chief here because he can't afford to take the Matron damage.
Yep.
And then I'm going to hit you for 3, put you down to 4. Unless you have another fetch.
I'm going to go to 6 and push the Ringleader. Got a tapped Blood Crypt here.
All right, so you're going to take 1 more and down to 5.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Your turn.
You have 2 in hand, one of which is Siege Gang.
Yep. Now, George Vert here would be pretty good because it would snag the Siege Gang and the land that I have in hand. But he would go to 8, and then I would just smack him for 6. And this is, again, why Mutavault is pretty good as a means of grinding in the deck.
Oh, I don't want to put Mutavault in my deck, Ross.
Look, I don't get to play Chain Whirler. You know how good Chain Whirler would have been against your what's called on turn 3? You're right. Look, I'm fine to admit when you're right. I literally put it in my deck.
So Ross, Jim is here now.
Okay.
Ooh, Jim, you're on my side, right? Because I'm playing Goblins, and you're the Goblin goon.
I cannot Deluge here because then I'll just die to these Mutavaults.
Yep.
So let's flashback Faithless Looting.
I think that just means you're dead. So I don't think you have thing. Or you're not dead. Okay, now you're dead.
I drew both Toxic Deluges this game, and they were horrendous.
Yeah, thanks, Mutavault. Now, I will point something out, right? You just watched this whole game, and this deck is not very good at disrupting combo decks. And so, while we didn't pair it against a combo deck for obvious reasons, there is a lot to be said that if this deck becomes good, like if it becomes one of the pillars of Modern, the easiest way to beat it is just going to be to go over the top of it with some sort of combo deck, because the only thing they can really splash is black for discard spells, which the combo decks are usually pretty adept at beating, or you can splash white like they do in Legacy for Thalia, Guardian of Thraven, which works really well off of Cavernous Soul sometimes if you need it to, as well as Ether Vial, which you're already casting, and then you can build like a weird fetch mana base. So. Also, just so y'all know, Cardboard Live is working again, so if you were curious about the deck list we are playing and you didn't see the opening sprawl, just make sure to click on the extension. And if you're on mobile, you can use the puzzle piece to do the same. But we're going to get set up here for Game 2. What you got coming in over there, Ross?
I got some sweepers here, or like, maybe not technically sweepers, but cards that deal with multiple small creatures. So you got Liliana Last Hope, which is going to be excellent. Can rebuy creatures that get gem palmed, but also just picking off a lot of the small things that Todd plays. Grimlockmancer also picking them off. Engineered Explosives is not going to be that good in this matchup because the Goblins deck has a pretty diversified curve, but it is quite good at picking off Aether Vial and good at picking off like excess tokens that Todd generates with Mog War Marshal and Siege Gang Commander. So I do think it's worthwhile. Liliana the Veil is not very good because the Edict mode is pretty poor. Kaya, maybe I'm supposed to leave Kaya in because it's another good answer to Vial and can just buffer my life total really well. This is a card that I think Mardu Pyromancer and similar decks should be incorporating for Modern right now, so I wanted to include it even if it's not great in this matchup.
Yeah.
Because it's quite good against Dredge, it's good against Phoenix.
I also don't think it's that bad in this matchup. Like, it's still going to be a 3-mana kill your Ether Vial.
Yeah. It's good against Hardened Scales.
This also can gain you some really important life points there. I mean, if you were able to just gain some life, and if I have to attack it, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem that bad. But,
yeah, let's cut like an Inquisition. I don't need too many discard spells.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, how many discard spells did you do that game? And I just peeled a Matron and a Ringleader and a Gem Palm, and you just got clowned.
Yeah, and then the Dreadbore is definitely the worst removal spell, being sorcery speed. There's no Planeswalkers we have to worry about. It's a bunch of extra mana.
True. Okay. On my side, we're going to be boarding in a Forked Bolt as a cheap answer to Young Pyromancer, as well as Grimlockmancer, and one Goblin King, because Ross might tap out at some point for like a Lingering Souls or a Young Pyromancer, just like making a bunch of tokens. And if I peel Goblin King and I have a couple of goblins already on the battlefield, there's a chance it just steals the game by giving them all Mountain Walk.
Yeah.
Now, I actually don't. Is this even legal in Modern right now? Is it an 8th edition or something?
Yeah.
I thought it was. In my head, the picture.
It's in 9th too.
Okay, sure. So it's one of those weird lords that actually affect both players' creatures, but only if they're playing goblins, obviously. But Goblin King is a cool tutor target to search up to kind of steal games if your opponent's able to gum up the battlefield.
Also, a good card against Liliana Last Hope.
Sure, yeah. Just any lord effect. We have 2 Goblin Chieftains that accomplish that already, but they are quite bad against...
File Driver is pretty bad against decks that are full of removal and blockers for it.
Right.
It's there mainly to pressure combo decks.
Yep, because there are some draws that feature like Mog War Marshal, Skirk Prospector, and then you have a 1-turn window where you can go War Chief, tutor up Pile Driver, and attack for the win. And if you are able to do that, you can kind of steal games sometimes. And we have 2 just so you can sometimes naturally draw 1 and do the same thing. But unlike the original iterations of Goblins, we've got a lot more Goblins nowadays that have utility. And I think Goblin Pile Driver is kind of a relic of times past, but you still want 1 or 2 to tutor up.
Another card you could play to get through Souls and Young Pyromancer is Legion Loyalist, which also plays well with Pile Driver.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's possibility that Legion Loyalist plus Pile Driver is just like the thing you should be doing because it gives it first strike.
That's sort of what the 8 whack decks do.
Yeah, that's true.
They usually play a couple Pile Drivers.
All right, well, before we get started with the game, we got any questions over there from Twitch chat or any cards they want us to talk about?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking about Goblin Lackey. I assume you believe that's too powerful?
I think it's on the cusp. I think that it is slightly too powerful. I think it actually just it becomes effectively a 1-mana version of Thief of Sanity, and just some of the play patterns I've seen in Standard with Thief of Sanity, and even more recently in Legacy. I'm not the hugest fan of cards that just so quickly make the entire game about it or answering it. Because the snowball effect that it creates, I think, is just slightly too powerful for Modern. But then again, decks that it would normally be good against, are going to have a lot of 1-mana removal spells for it. And decks that, Goblins is traditionally bad against, it's going to give you the speed you need to be able to potentially keep up with it. So it's very close, but personally I think it's just a little too good.
Yeah, I'm in that boat in theory, and I think I wanted to try the deck without it to see how well it could stand without having Goblin Lackey.
Yep.
And because if you don't need it, then it's a card that I'd rather not see in the format.
Mm-hmm.
If you do need it, then you can discuss adding it. So I wanted to see how the deck performed without Lackey at first, but it's definitely that one's pushing it.
Yeah.
And then also, just what about splashing white? I think you mentioned earlier about Thalia.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't like a lot of white goblins or anything like that, that you want to play. Obviously, Goblin Legionnaire is not legal. I would play it. Don't get me wrong. I would play me some Goblin Legionnaire.
Legionnaire is worse than Crater Maker.
It is, which is unfortunate because I actually my first PTQ I ever won. I had 4 Goblin Legionnaire in my deck, and it was sweet.
Nice.
That was back when you could stack damage, so it was quite a bit better when you attack with 2 2/2s. They block with 2 2s. You stack damage, and then you're like, okay, now prevent the 2 damage to the other 2/2, and then you're dead. So Legionnaire was always really strong when you could do those little stack damage shenanigans, but it's obviously a lot worse now, and Crater Maker does fill that role nicely.
Yeah, while blowing up a lot of things. So,
but white 4 Thalia could be reasonable. I'll say that.
My hand's good.
My hand's okay.
Or what's the red-white enchantment that allows you to sack a land to make Goblin tokens?
Goblin Trenches.
Goblin Trenches. Yeah, that one's right before the cutoff.
Could get
as well.
that maybe.
Could get that one.
That's a different kind of Goblin card.
It is. You want to take that Goblin King? Or that Magi War Marshal?
I'm going to take the War Marshal.
So, my turn?
Yep. It's the card that lets Todd play through removal most effectively.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and play the Fanatic. I didn't want to open it up to a spell removal spell before he played something like Young Pyromancer, but casting here actually keeps him from playing a Pyromancer this turn, which I like. Yep.
I'm actually going to discard the 2 mountains here and play Bloodstained Mire and pass.
Oh, it's a tilt. Okay, attack for 1?
Yep.
All right.
19.
Play a Crater Maker.
I'll go to 18 to fetch on the end step. Get a tapped Sacred Foundry.
Okay.
Wherever it might be.
Not the greatest start in the world. Obviously, something like Aether Vial in the early turns would be strong. Especially if I'm able to combine those with, the Goblin Matrons and the Ringleaders later on. And I'm hoping that in Game 3 that's something we can actually get to see, just an Aether Vial going unfettered. Because that's I think awkward. It's one of the stronger draws that the deck can produce.
That is very awkward.
What's up?
Think I'm just going to go with my original plan of casting Lingering Souls.
Sounds good to
Make
me.
some spirits. This Goblin King is going to get in our way, though. Kind of wish I had taken that with the Inquisition, but our hand played out a little differently.
All right. We'll play the Goblin King. I'm sure it's going to die, but if it's going to die, maybe I shouldn't play it, because I don't have to play it. I'm going to play a Goblin Chieftain. I'm going to attack with... If I attack with everything, if he double blocks here, I shoot a token, and then he takes 3 and his 2 tokens die. If I think I'll just play an attack with everything. I think that's the best attack. Take 7.
I'll go to 11.
Okay, your turn. Now I might get hit with a Deluge, but then I still have Goblin King to potentially come back from it, so...
Inquisition, that Goblin King.
Ooh, no. Okay.
And
Charge Vert, maybe gain 6 life. That's pretty cool.
Bolt the Chieftain.
Okie dokie.
Pass the turn. Just continuing to play defense.
Now, my draw has not been super good since the opener, but we did draw Crater Maker and Chieftain as our 2 spells. He knows about this. So here's the problem. If I attack with this and he double blocks and I shoot 1 and he bolts this, I'm just trading like my entire board for not a lot. But I think I just have to force the action a little bit. But this is just pushing him towards Bedlam Reveler, so it's very dangerous. But he could just cast it next turn anyway. So
Go to 9.
all right, your turn.
Okay. Battle Reveler.
Sure.
Discard EE looting.
Luckily for me, he does have to discard 2 cards to draw the 3, so it's not that big of a deal.
Play this land tapped, and one more turn of passing. I think next turn is when we'll start getting more aggressive. Actually, I should attack with at least one of these things. There's very little.
No, I agree. There's very is Jim Palm Incinerator, but I only have 2 goblins and I didn't play much else. I would have to go cycle, kill it, sack this, kill it, and then you're only taking 1 and you can block.
Yeah.
So
you're at 19.
Yeah, I'm at 19, and you're at 9. Your turn.
Let's verdict you.
All right, you gain 6, and that is
15.
a huge deal in this stage. But I just drew 7 lands. Not a lot I can do here.
Attack for 4.
I'm at 15.
You can go. So 15 all.
Just these 2. Target token.
Terminate immutable.
Yep.
So I lose a token and take 2. Brings me to 13.
Yeah, I'm basically dead. I just keep drawing lands. But if I ever draw a Ringleader or a Matron, I can maybe stabilize because I just get to play Magic for a little while longer. The problem is he can just draw a discard spell and take the cards out of my hand. So it actually unlocks
Flashback looting.
dead-ish discard spells that he could draw. Maybe I should have attacked with Mutable up there.
Discard Deluge Marsh Flats.
Yep.
Attack for
5.
5.
I'm at
Bring you
10.
10. Pass.
Means he probably has a 1-mana removal spell in hand. Alright, attack.
Ooh, perfect.
11. Yeah, just what I needed.
Let's flashback Lingering Souls.
Yep.
Get 2 more spirits. Attack you for 5.
I'm at 5.
Pass the turn.
Now, there is some merit to testing in a scenario like this. I quit. Of playing like something like Goblin Sharpshooter, because there's a chance that if they go all out, they actually put Sharpshooter in as well. And I kind of wanted to put one in as a one-of, but we're already kind of pushing it with Ringleader, Matron, and...
You already have Chain Whirler, too.
And and the fact that I have access to Chain Whirler...
Chain Whirler is probably better than Sharpshooter. I guess once you have Skirk Prospector and Siege Gang, it gets a little different.
It gets a lot crazier.
I played Standard Goblins for like 9 months with 4 Sharpshooter, 4 Siege Gang, 4 Skirk Prospector, and Bidding. You did some dirty things.
Should I just Blood Moon you?
Once I beat... No.
I should feel like I should just Blood Moon you.
Mutavault's I'm a deck that often plays Blood Moon myself, and I'm going to be fetching Basic Swamp just to save life, and you have Mutavault in your deck.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. I just
You,
want to draw one of my good cards. I literally just drew a bunch of stinkers that game.
know, not a great draw on your part, but when you...
I mean, that's just the mono red deck with no filtering or whatever. You
Yeah.
don't draw your good cards and you die.
I mean, we saw you got in game 1. You got left with what looked like nothing, and 1 card just snowballed really quickly.
Yeah, the one Jim Palm Incinerator drew me into like Matron, Ringleader into War Chief. Yeah, it was very good.
So all you need is 1 good draw.
All right,
play here for game 3.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a turn 1 Vi a lot of you either.
Yeah. Do you want me to just get it?
No.
I want them to see how it goes. All right, whatever. I'll keep.
Yeah, this hand's fine.
All right, we can't mulligan too often against this deck just because of all the discard effects. So, I mean, my hand is
18
fine.
and Inquisition you. Definitely taking the Matron.
All right, attack for 1.
17.
Your turn.
That's weird. Pass.
All right, I'm going to do it this way because he's almost 100% going to kill my creature. So we're going to play the Matron instead and just go get a Goblin Ringleader and force him to have basically just discard spell after discard spell after discard spell. And then we're going to attack for 1.
I'm going to bolt the Mog Fanatic.
1 to you.
16.
Go. And he's going to untap and play Young Pyromancer. Then we got to get a little lucky. What's wrong?
I drew a card that I kind of want to play instead of Young Pyromancer.
Gerard's Verdict?
No, I can't. Can't cast that one.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
Pass the turn. A little bit of a nombo with Bedlam Reveler, but yeah, play your haste creature first.
2, 3, 4. So we hit only one
Man.
again. But it's still a 2 for 1, and that's good. And that's what we need. And if we ever hit 2 things, it's busted.
13.
All right, your turn. Like, I can grind through a Grim Lavamancer. That's not an issue.
Pass the turn.
Clear tags.
In combat. Yeah. So I'm going to go to 10 and get a Sacred Foundry, and bolt this, make a token.
Okay. Attack with both. That's fine.
Trade for the Matron, go to 8.
Your turn.
This Mutavaults, once again, is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I should kill the Young Pyromancer or the Grim Lavamancer in that spot. That one's pretty tough.
Definitely getting in for 2. You're at 18.
Yep.
And I think we just have to play this one first.
Souls make a bunch of things.
Ooh, I could do it that way. That might be the best.
What?
Yeah. Well, you'll see. I'm going to go to 7.
You know, like discard plus looting plus Bedlam Reveler?
No.
Like that?
I'm going to K command, killing the ringleader and bring back Lavamancer and making a token, and then replay the Lavamancer.
Okay. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have a 5th land, so Lavamancer gives me things to do with this 4th mana,
Yep.
which I like, and I need more removal spells, and I get a token. Go to... You're not going to play other Goblins have haste?
Before I'm going to cycle that on that. If I drew a land, I was going to do this, but I'll
Sure.
just attack for 2. Put you to 5.
Yes.
Your turn. So I have War Marshal you know about. I'm still not sure if... I'm pretty sure I should target the Lavamancer over the Young Pyromancer, but they're both quite annoying. I'm kind of just hoping that Ross just kind of runs out of steam, doesn't draw Faithless Looting, can't get rid of...
Thought
Dead
sees you,
stuff.
make a token.
You're at 3. Which of my 3 great cards you want?
I will take the Chieftain for sure. And... which one do I play first?
I don't know.
So, Todd is going to be able to cast both of these next turn because they both cost 1 less, and attack with Mutavault. So that creates 5 attackers. And I need to block the 3 2/2s. So I think I need to do it this way first. Lingering Souls, make an elemental, get 2 spirits.
Yep.
And attack for 2. You're at 16.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Chain Whirler here, even Matron into Chain Whirler here would be so good. So, like, you should probably have 1 even if you're going to play Mutavault. I just want to have 4 that... Oh, my God. Hold on.
Am I dead?
I don't know. Not good at maths. So what happens if I just play these out, right? This is not happening. I'm just... oh, we don't have a Cedric. He's going to be pissed.
Didn't give me one.
No,
Where are our goblins?
that's fine. So if I do this, I have this. All these attacking, right? And you're
I'll
at 3.
trade for these and block the token and go to 2. And you'd be left with these.
Wait, trade for these.
I trade for the token off War Marshal and the War Chief
You're
and the 2 War
3.
Chiefs. Oh, no, I chump this. I'm sorry. I thought I was at 5. So I would block all 3 of these, trading for the War Chiefs, and go to 1. and you would have the War Marshal and the Mutavault and the token.
All right, now how does this... Can I kill you with this? I don't know. Let's see if I kill 2 blockers, all right? And then I don't basically get to do this, so let's say... Oh, no, all this costs red.
Yeah.
So...
You either get to... So Forked Bolt comes at the expense of either War Marshal or Mutavault.
So I think I'll just do... Okay, so if I Fork Bolt 2 of these, play these 2, get a token, and then I attack with these, you have to go basically chump...
I have to trade for 1 War Chief and chump
1.
another, and you'd be left with a War Chief in play. Then it'd still be at 1. That seems way better.
But I think just putting you to 1 with a Fork Bolt in hand might just be the best thing, though. And you just you don't know about the Fork Bolt, so
that is also true.
Let's just do this, and then
okay,
double block, chump,
2
go to
2,
1.
and then chump here and go to 1.
Okay.
So I have no tokens left. You have no War Chiefs left.
Yeah. All right, and I have Echo to pay.
And I think I probably should have left the Pyromancer back that turn.
Do you want to do that instead? Because then I'm way more incentivized to play. No, let's do that instead. I actually think your attack was kind of bad, personally. And I think it's going to change how this game ends up. Because now you're just dead, unless you draw an Inquisition.
I mean, I have Kaya in hand. But it's not enough unless
But it doesn't make it... do you have a land?
I need to draw one... I need to draw a 1-mana removal spell or something else. Let's just play from here.
Okay.
We'll talk about what would happen.
Sorry.
That was a good draw. Kaya.
Yep.
I will plus on a creature, non-creature if I can, but I don't think it really matters.
I just have all creatures, man.
Okay, so remove...
It's like my whole deck.
Remove 2 of them.
Sure.
Oh, it's up to 2.
Oh, sure.
I
have like 47.
you have
You're never going to run out of things.
I'll go to 3.
Okay.
Pass the turn.
All right, so let's
Pay
Echo. Let's Fork Bolt, Pyromancer, and you for 1. Then you bolt this.
Bolt a token in response.
You
Get a
1.
token.
Yep. Then activate.
So then I go to 2 from the Forked Bolt.
Yep.
And I have to chump block Mutavault and go back to 1.
All right, your turn.
Plus go to 3.
Yep.
Remove 2 things. Cast a Lingering Souls.
Okay.
You can go.
Well, you're dead. That was a really good draw. Sack this, play Siege Gang Commander, and throw... Wait, is that lethal?
Nope. You're one goblin short. Oh no, you get a goblin when this dies.
Yeah.
So you have exactly enough.
Right,
so
he
he sacks this for 1, gets a goblin.
No, I think I'm short.
No.
So
Because you get 3 more goblins, sack the 4 tokens for 4 red mana, and then throw these 2 at me.
Oh yeah,
You have exactly enough.
Cool. Kill you.
That's guess.
Yeah, I agree.
I might have. Well, I'm probably not beating the Siege Gang like that turn anyway, because I'm just going to play like a Lingering Souls, and you're going to untap and kill me with it.
Yeah,
Unless
I mean, you have to
draw.
draw.
Guess I was drawing Reveler.
That,
1,
draw
2, 3, 4. Yeah.
enough.
So
You've drawn land K command, but you couldn't.
well, I
cast
draw
the
3
K command.
cards.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would have drawn nothing off the Reveler. That Sieging is probably going to kill me. Man, I killed a lot of things. I really wanted to get the Kaya down earlier, but there was just so much pressure on me every turn.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't realize you had Forked Bolt in your deck.
I brought it in. One Fork Bolt.
1 Forked Bolt.
1 Fork Bolt. What? I don't know. I have 1 Tarfire main. I have Fork Bolt in the
Yeah.
sideboard.
But you
what's
really...
that?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Cycles, Todd.
It's about cycles, okay? You got Fire Ice, you got to have Wax Swain. Yin and Yang. Cycles.
Thanks
That's
to
so
Rector
good.
Taylor for that one.
Hey, thank you so much.
Oh, man. So you really did see the power of Goblins just powering through a lot of removal, a lot of blockers, like token generation from Pyromancer and from Lingering Souls, and like a couple bolts and a Kyle. A lot of good interaction there, and the Goblin deck was really able to get through. Mutavault critical in both games that you won.
I agree. But I also think there's a chance 1 Chain Whirler is fine, even that. I was afraid that I would draw like Mutavault 2 Mountains or whatever. But the thing about Aether Vials, you get to cheat a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And with only 4, I still have 19 red sources, or 18. I think the deck probably should end up playing 1 more land, even though I flooded a bit.
I do think the extra land should be a Pendlehaven, but...
You want to play Chain Whirler and Pendlehaven in the same deck?
Yeah. You have Aether Vial, it's fine. It's only 1 of.
Okay. Moving on. Obviously, Matron, an all-star. It was always the reason why Goblins was playable, in my opinion. Just that combined with War Chief lets you tutor up a whole host of things that are good in very specific situations. I don't think Goblins can really function without it. Aside from that, though, if it only got Matron, it might be playable. But I mean, we saw Ringleader hit one Goblin twice, so
But it's still important.
it was important. But at the same time, I don't think it's as busted as people remember it, because people remember the times it hits 3 or 4 Goblins, and they don't really remember the time, or the time it hits 0. You know, but they don't really remember the time it only hits 1, and how integral it was to the economy of your opponent one for wanting you so often with spot removal spells, you know, like or counter spells or whatever.
You're on 33, 34 Goblins, depending on your land count with vials. And so you're going to hit around 2 on average. Usually you'll average a little bit better than that. And that's just a clean 3-for-1 that provides pressure. It's a haste body. It's a 2-2, which is important against -1/-1 effects. I think the real kicker and the hero of those games, other than Mutavault, and probably the number one hero, was Jump Home Incinerator.
Oh, yeah.
You drew them off the top in that third game to deal with both times I had Lavamancer down before I was really set up to start using it. And that was key, because not only did it deal with one of my key threats, it kept the gas flowing for you. This 2-mana cycling removal spell, just so powerful. You know, one of the reasons that the Teamer energy decks were so good, and a card that didn't end up on the ban list, it was Harness Lightning. Like, it was the only deck that really got to utilize Harness Lightning as 2-mana Terminate. Killed any creature, like 8. You'd see them use 8 energy on it to kill something big, like a Verdurous Gearhulk, but it could kill small things too, and it would do that for value. This is Jump Home Incinerator is your Harness Lightning. It's this really powerful removal spell when it's constantly dealing 2, 3, 4, 5 damage and drawing a card. It's not counterable. Like you can't just dispel it or something to protect your threat. Really, really good. And I think you're very right that that's a linchpin of the deck, one that doesn't really get a lot of hype. You know, Matron and Ringleader are the real big ones that you hear talked about, and Lackey. But Jump Home Incinerator is just so powerful and so good in this deck, and it was really one of the cards that helped you get through, because it affords you the ability to interact in these matchups where I'm the one who wants to trade 1-for-1. Now you get an interactive card for my threats. Normally, like, I'm trading so heavily and want to trade so much that you're loath to put any sort of reactive card in your deck, but it's a reactive card that generates value. So it's super important in this matchup, but really, and you really saw the power of it both times. Todd cycled it in Game 3. It was devastating for me.
Yeah, Game 2, though, the star was Gerard's Verdict at the end of the game, like just locking it up. You were all the way down to 9 life from the early pressure, and then at one point, you just knocked the last 2 cards out of my hand and made it so that you basically undid all the damage that I did to you, let alone the damage that your own mana basin and your Thoughtseize did to you. This is actually not a matchup where I even think that Gerard's Verdict is great. I think it's just fine, and you're going to see Gerard's Verdict come in, be like one of these staples, perhaps, that just completely crushes the burn decks or any aggressive slanted deck that can't really afford to discard a spell, and also can't really afford to discard a land, and that's kind of the catch-22 of Gerard's Verdict and why it's such a strong card. Like, unlike Hymn to Torod, your opponent does get to choose, but both choices are bad. Much like Risk Factor and Standard, if you can put your opponent in a spot where both choices are bad, that's when you're going to see a card like Gerard's Verdict shine, where Gerard's Verdict is always just going to be good, no matter what.
Yeah, definitely seems like it's right on the power level. Be a card that would be excited to see reprinted in Modern Horizons. On the other hand, Toxic Deluge looked really bad.
Right, but that's good.
Yeah.
It's good that it looked bad.
The point you made about the life loss from your lands and things being really relevant and then being exacerbated by the cost on Deluge came up. And get that game 1, I drew both of them, and I drew both my Thoughtseizes, and I had to fetch Shock at one point to cast my spells. And so I was already at 13, and I only wanted to cast it for 2, but against Mutavault, that just wasn't enough. I could never find a good spot. I pitched one to a looting and died with the other one in my hand. How often do you start with 2 Wrath of Gods in your opening hand against an aggressive creature deck and never cast either of them, despite having the mana to, and die? I don't think that's ever happened to me in 20 years. So, both a testament to the power of Mutavault and the exacerbation of the downside of paying life in a format where fetch shock lands are the foundation of so many mana bases, especially for reactive decks, because they usually need to play 3 colors to get a wide enough variety of answers to compete in the format, and so they're the decks that are dealing themselves the most damage. The Juns, the Jeskais, or maybe Espers if they're playing Deluge in this case. Things like that. The Abzans, the Golgaris.
I will say this: I think in a deck with Tarmogoyf or a deck with the Delve creatures like Gurmag Angler or whatever, those are going to be the decks where you actually see the true strength of something like Toxic Deluge, where you get to clear your opponent's creatures. You don't kill your own, so you're able to maybe deploy a threat early to play defense, right?
And force your opponent to extend into it to go around your threat.
Right, but something like Young Pyromancer doesn't really mesh that well with it. I think the true strength of Gurmag Angler, much like Tuesday when I was playing Shardless Agent in my Vapor Snag deck, it's not it. That ain't it. You know, you need to have a bunch of clean hits off of the Shardless. You need to have a bunch of creatures that don't die to your own Toxic Deluge, while still being a threat that forces your opponent to go wide and overextend.
Yeah, we're batting 1 for 2 on the Mardu side of things, but an impressive showing from Goblins. You know, if it gets all of these
I didn't
tools,
even draw Ether Vial.
Yeah.
You know, imagine if at any point I'd drawn Ether Vial and was like vialing in matrons and casting ringleaders and yada yada yada, and like the mana generation from Vial is so potent that it makes or breaks a card like Goblin Matron. You know, any creature that effectively says draw a card or whatever just gets so much better when you have Ether Vial. And the fact that I didn't draw, like, obviously you have Kolaghan's Command, you could have potentially killed it or whatever, but just imagine Goblins against something like, you know, Esper or, you know, Jeskai Control or Azorius Miracles, and you play a turn 1 Ether Vial. The entire game changes. Your opponent, their counter spells become a lot worse. You get to start, having giant turns where you get to Vial in a Matron, play Cavernous Souls on Goblin, cast Ringleader, attacking for 2 minimum, and still have a Vial next turn that can cast your whole host of 3s that you're kind of glutted on most of the time.
Yeah, this full hand, the board gums up with these 2/2s and 1/1s that your opponent doesn't really want to use spot removal on, but you're still applying significant pressure, and that's it's the way Goblins has been attacking people for 10, 15 years, and it looked just as impressive there as it did in 2004.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running a bit over, so we'll take 2 if you got any questions or cards or anything like that, Rob.
What about Fire Covenant over Toxic Deluge? Do you think that could see a reprint?
I think the one-side effect is way too good. Fire Covenant's a card that occasionally sees play in Legacy, and when it's good, it is gross.
It's 1 black-red sorcery. You pay X life to deal X damage, divided as you choose among creatures.
3 mana, one-sided Wrath. It's insane. It's maybe, but probably not. That kind of effect is just.
I think you'd see Deluge instead of Covenant.
Yeah, since it's symmetrical.
Is Covenant even an additional cost?
I don't think so. Is it additional cost?
Yes, as an additional cost.
Okay,
X life.
I think you'd see Deluge before you saw Covenant, and yeah, Covenant is just. Yeah, it's too narrowly powerful, whereas Deluge forces you to actually break the symmetry, which is nice.
Yeah.
With bigger creatures like Todd was saying. So,
all right.
Nah.
Next.
Next is Pernicious Deed.
I'd be surprised if that one's not in.
I would also be surprised if it's not in. Although I think it might be like slightly too good, but I still think it's fine.
Yeah, Oblivion Stone is perfectly fine. It's not appreciably better than Oblivion Stone.
No, that's a good point. No, that's fair.
It's cool. Actually, it's actually kind of cool that Pernicious Deed, because it predates Planeswalkers, doesn't answer Planeswalkers.
Ironically, has a Planeswalker on the front of it.
Yeah.
The whole flavor text from the original Invasion block one was about, I believe, Freyalise setting off some Doomsday engine or whatever. I read the book.
Chaos Weapon.
Sure.
They used the Chaos Weapon to blow up the world, right? Or blow up something.
I don't think so. No, what are you talking about?
It's
the
Apocalypse.
ship?
The Starship Weatherlight. Somebody uses the Chaos
Legacy weapon? You mean the
Legacy weapon, not Chaos Weapon.
No, Freyalise is not setting off the Legacy weapon.
Somebody used the Legacy weapon.
She is blowing up a different Planeswalker who was trying to sabotage the Weatherlight.
Sure.
And she is sacrificing herself.
She was trying to get back at Yawgmoth.
Yeah, but she sacrificed herself and blew something up.
Anyway. I should have known not to try to talk about lore, because I have no idea what goes on ever.
Well, the picture of it's really cool. And that was one of the iconic cards for me when I was growing up. with Pernicious Deed.
I'm in for Pernicious Deed. It's a cool one with like Bloodbraid Elf too. You can cascade into it and then like leave it in play.
It also doesn't hit. Yeah, the fact that you said it doesn't hit Planeswalkers means you can play it with a whole host of things like Jason Mind Sculptor or whatever, and you can peel it off the top in some spots and sweep the board while not touching your
Get
stuff.
those vials out of the way too.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool card. I'm hoping we see that one.
Yeah. All right, one more. We'll do one more.
Mind's Desire.
Nope.
No, fired. All right.
We're done now. You ruined it.
Yeah, no, we're done. All right, so we got one more match coming up for y'all. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for more Versus live here from StarcyGames.com.